Racist cops surround black woman, but freeze when her military dogs step forward. The town of Millfield slumbered beneath a heavy summer dusk, its streets lined with aging oaks and houses that wore their history like a second skin. Though the world outside had changed, here the echoes of old prejudices still lingered, woven into the fabric of daily life. On the edge of this town, in a neighborhood often dismissed by outsiders as troubled, Lauren made her home. Her modest house, painted a fading blue, stood as a quiet testament to resilience. Lauren was a young black woman, a veteran whose years in the military had taught her discipline and self-reliance. She had returned from service not to rest, but to continue serving in her own way, as a handler and rescuer of military working dogs. Lauren's days were filled with structure and purpose. Her mornings began before sunrise, training and caring for her two loyal companions, Max and Iris. Both dogs bore the marks of their own service. Max, a sturdy German shepherd with a scar above his eye, and Iris, a sleek Belgian Malinois whose alertness never faded. Together they formed a small family bound by shared experience and mutual trust. For Lauren, the dogs were more than pets. They were her partners, her protectors, and her link to a life defined by duty. Despite her quiet strength, Lauren was not immune to the undercurrents that shaped Millfield. She knew the looks she received at the grocery store, the whispered conversations that followed her in public spaces. The town's police force, in particular, seemed to view her presence with suspicion. Patrol cars lingered longer on her street, and officers watched her comings and goings with a wariness that went unspoken but unmistakable. On this particular evening, the air was thick with humidity, and the sky threatened rain. Lauren finished her shift at the local animal shelter, her uniform stained with the dust and fur of a day spent working with anxious, hopeful creatures. She loaded Max and Iris into the back seat of her car, their bodies relaxing into the familiar routine. As she drove home, the city's lights flickered to life, casting long shadows that danced across her windshield. Turning onto her street, Lauren felt a fleeting sense of peace. The familiar sight of her porch, the gentle thump of Max's tail against the seat, the steady breathing of Iris, these were the anchors that kept her grounded. But as she neared her driveway, the sharp wail of a police siren shattered the calm. Blue and red lights flashed in her rearview mirror, and Lauren's heart tightened with a mixture of dread and resignation. She pulled over, her movements deliberate and calm. The training that had served her in the military now guided her actions. Keep your hands visible, remain composed, do not give them a reason to escalate. 4 police officers emerged from their vehicles, their faces set in hard lines, their eyes scanning her car with practiced suspicion. They fanned out, surrounding her vehicle, their hands hovering near their holsters. Lauren's mind raced through possibilities. She had not been speeding. Her registration was up to date, and there was no reason for this stop, at least none that she could see. Yet the reality of her situation was clear. In Millfield, suspicion did not need justification when directed at someone who looked like her. The officers began their approach, their postures rigid, their intent unmistakable. Inside the car, Max and Iris sensed the shift in energy. Their bodies tensed, eyes narrowing as they watched the figures outside. Lauren steadied her breathing, drawing strength from the silent presence of her dogs. She knew this confrontation was not just about a traffic stop. It was about the unspoken boundaries that still divided her town, and the quiet defiance required to cross them. As the officers closed in, the night seemed to hold its breath. In the shadows of prejudice, Lauren prepared to face whatever would come next, her resolve as unyielding as the loyalty of the companions at her side. Lauren's hands rested steadily on the steering wheel as the officers closed in. The humid night pressed against the windows, amplifying the sense of isolation that came with being surrounded. She could feel the weight of their gazes, each one searching for a reason to justify their presence, to turn suspicion into accusation. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension, the kind that grows from years of mistrust and misunderstanding. Inside the car, Max and Iris shifted, their bodies alert but controlled. They were trained for moments like this, not to attack, but to observe, to protect, to wait for their handler's signal. Lauren glanced back at them, drawing reassurance from their unwavering focus. The bond she shared with her dogs went beyond commands and routines. It was built on mutual respect and countless hours spent facing uncertainty together. In their presence, she found a sense of safety that the outside world too often denied her. The officers began their inspection, circling the car, shining flashlights into the windows, their movements sharp and deliberate. One of them lingered near the back door, peering at the dogs with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Lauren knew what they saw. Two large, disciplined animals, their posture calm but ready. Max's ears were pricked forward, his gaze never leaving the officer's face. Iris's body was coiled, every muscle prepared to respond if needed. Lauren's mind drifted back to her days in the military, to the endless drills and tense patrols where trust in her canine partners had been a matter of survival. Max had once detected an explosive device buried beneath loose gravel, saving an entire unit from disaster. Iris had tracked missing soldiers through dense forests, her instincts guiding them home. These memories were a reminder of what her dogs were capable of, and why she trusted them more than most people. As the officers continued their search, Lauren remained composed. She answered their questions with measured clarity, her tone respectful but firm. She provided her identification, her registration, every document in perfect order. Still, the officers seemed unsatisfied, their suspicion undiminished. One of them gestured for her to step out of the vehicle, his voice clipped and commanding. Lauren hesitated, weighing her options. She knew that compliance was often the safest path, but she also understood the risks of leaving the protective space of her car. Before she could move, Max let out a low, controlled rumble, a warning, not a threat. The sound was enough to make the officer pause, his hand hovering uncertainly near his belt. Iris's eyes never wavered, her body a silent barrier between Lauren and the world outside. The standoff stretched on, each side waiting for the other to make the next move. Lauren's heart pounded in her chest, but her resolve did not falter. She knew that her dignity, her safety, and perhaps even her life depended on her ability to remain calm, to trust in the training that had carried her through far worse than this. The officers, confronted by the quiet authority of the dogs and the unwavering composure of their handler, began to falter. For a brief moment, the world seemed to narrow to the space inside Lauren's car, the steady breathing of her dogs, the rhythmic thump of her heart, the distant hum of cicadas outside. In that suspended silence, Lauren understood that her greatest strength lay not in confrontation, but in the unbreakable bond she shared with her loyal guardians. Whatever happened next, she would not face it alone. The situation outside the car grew more tense as the officers regrouped, whispering among themselves, their voices low but urgent. The leader, a broad-shouldered man with a stern expression, stepped forward, signaling his colleagues to hold back. He approached Lauren's window, his posture rigid, his eyes scanning her face for any sign of defiance or fear. Lauren met his gaze with quiet determination, refusing to be intimidated. Max and Iris remained statuesque, their presence a constant reminder that Lauren was not defenseless. The officer's eyes flicked toward the dogs, and for a moment, uncertainty clouded his features. He asked more questions, his tone probing, searching for inconsistencies in Lauren's story. She answered each one with precision, never wavering, her responses shaped by years of discipline and the knowledge that any misstep could be used against her. The minutes dragged on, each one heavy with the possibility of escalation. The neighborhood, usually alive with evening sounds, had fallen silent. Lights glowed behind curtains as neighbors watched from the safety of their homes, unwilling to intervene but unable to look away. Lauren felt their eyes on her, the weight of their expectations mingling with her own determination to stand her ground. One of the younger officers grew impatient, tapping his flashlight against his leg, his frustration evident. He suggested searching the car, his voice rising in agitation. The leader hesitated, glancing again at the dogs. Max's muscles tensed and Iris shifted her weight, ready to respond to any threat. Lauren sensed the shift in energy, her instincts honed by years of training. She knew that a single wrong move could turn the situation dangerous. In that moment, Lauren remembered the lessons of her military service: patience, composure, and the importance of reading the room. She focused on her breathing, keeping her voice steady, her movements slow and deliberate. She explained the dogs' training, their role as service animals, and her own background as a veteran. The officers listened, their skepticism slowly giving way to a grudging respect. The standoff reached its peak when the leader, faced with the reality of two disciplined military dogs and a handler who refused to be intimidated, made a decision. He signaled his team to step back, their aggression dissolving into uncertainty. The tension in the air eased, replaced by a cautious truce. Lauren remained still, her hands visible, her dogs unwavering at her side. As the officers retreated, Lauren allowed herself a moment of relief. The confrontation had not ended in violence, but the scars of the experience would linger. She knew that her actions and the silent strength of her dogs had made a statement, a quiet defiance against the prejudice that still haunted her town. The night air was thick with unspoken questions, but for now, Lauren and her loyal guardians had held their ground, proving that courage and dignity could prevail even in the face of fear. As the police officers pulled back, the air around Lauren's car seemed to loosen, but the tension remained palpable. The leader of the group lingered near the edge of the curb, his gaze fixed on Lauren and her dogs, as if weighing the risks of pressing further. The other officers exchanged uncertain glances, their earlier bravado replaced by a wary caution. The confrontation had not ended, but it had shifted. Now it was a test of patience, of who would yield first. Inside the car, Max and Iris maintained their disciplined stance. Their training was evident in every muscle, every measured breath. They did not bark or lunge. Their power lay in their restraint, in the unspoken promise that they would act only if truly necessary. Lauren felt a surge of pride for her companions. Their presence was her shield, their loyalty her armor. In their calm, she found the strength to remain composed, to let the silence speak for her. The neighborhood, once silent, began to stir. Curtains fluttered as neighbors peered out, drawn by the spectacle unfolding on their usually quiet street. Some recorded the scene on their phones, capturing the tense tableau of a black woman, her military dogs, and the uncertain police officers. The weight of those unseen witnesses added another layer to the standoff, a reminder that Lauren was not entirely alone. The officers regrouped near their vehicles, speaking in low voices. The leader's face was drawn, his authority challenged not by aggression, but by the quiet force of discipline and dignity. He approached Lauren's window once more, his posture less confrontational. He asked a final round of questions, his tone softer, as if searching for a way to end the encounter without further escalation. Lauren responded with the same calm clarity she had maintained throughout, her answers precise, her demeanor unyielding. Eventually, the officer's resolve began to waver. The reality of the situation was undeniable. Lauren had done nothing wrong, her documents were in order, and her dogs were clearly trained professionals. The threat they had perceived was not real, and the longer they lingered, the more obvious their overreach became. The leader gave a curt nod, signaling his team to withdraw. As the police cars pulled away, the tension in Lauren's body finally began to ease. She exhaled slowly, her hands trembling with the adrenaline that had carried her through the ordeal. Max and Iris relaxed, their watchful eyes softening as the danger passed. Lauren reached back to stroke their fur, grateful for their steadfast presence. The neighbors who had watched from behind glass now stepped onto their porches, some offering silent nods of support, others simply observing. The story of the night's events would soon spread, carried by word of mouth and social media, sparking conversations about race, authority, and the quiet power of resistance. For Lauren, the standoff was more than a personal victory. It was a statement, a reminder that dignity and discipline could stand firm against intimidation. As she guided Max and Iris into the house, Lauren felt the weight of the night settle into her bones. She knew the scars of the experience would linger, but so would the lesson. Silent strength could be as powerful as any words or weapons. In the safety of her home, surrounded by her loyal guardians, Lauren allowed herself a moment of peace, knowing that she had faced the shadows of prejudice and emerged unbroken. In the days that followed, the events of that summer night rippled through the community. The confrontation became a topic of conversation at local shops, in schools, and around dinner tables. Videos of the incident circulated online, drawing attention far beyond the boundaries of Millfield. Some saw in Lauren's calm defiance a symbol of quiet resistance. Others questioned the actions of the police, debating the line between vigilance and prejudice. Lauren's life changed in subtle but significant ways. The police presence in her neighborhood became less aggressive, their patrols more measured. A few officers, previously strangers, approached her with questions about Max and Iris, curious about their training and the work Lauren did with veterans and rescue animals. The initial hostility gave way, in some cases, to a grudging respect. The dogs, once viewed with suspicion, became local legends, emblems of discipline and loyalty. For Lauren, the aftermath was a time of reflection and renewed purpose. She continued her work with military dogs, training them not only for protection, but also for therapy and companionship. Her story inspired others, veterans struggling with reintegration, young people facing discrimination, and neighbors who had witnessed the power of quiet courage. Lauren's home became a gathering place for those seeking support, her experience a beacon for those who felt unseen. The memory of the standoff lingered, a reminder of the challenges that still lay ahead. Prejudice did not vanish overnight, and Lauren knew that the struggle for justice was ongoing. Yet she also understood that change often began with small acts of bravery, with one person standing firm, refusing to be diminished by fear. Her dogs remained by her side, their presence a constant source of reassurance and strength. In time, Lauren's story reached city councils and police departments, sparking discussions about de-escalation, empathy, and the value of service animals. She spoke at community meetings, sharing her experience and advocating for greater understanding between law enforcement and the people they served. Her voice, once quiet, grew stronger, fueled by the knowledge that she was not alone. As another summer approached, Lauren looked back on that night not with bitterness but with resolve. She had faced the storm and emerged stronger, her dignity intact. Max and Iris, ever vigilant, remained her loyal guardians, their silent strength a testament to the bonds that can overcome even the deepest divides. In the end, Lauren's story was not just about confrontation, but about resilience, hope, and the enduring power of trust.